I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation Program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Eric, welcome to the Site Shed podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on, Matt.
And today we're tackling the topic of meetings. And I suppose it's my focus for this year especially is all about optimization. Like, I'm just going headfirst into refining process and just being a better operator. And so we've got some wheels in motion there to make those sort of things happen. And one of them actually is meetings. And I know for you listeners out there and viewers, if that have been familiar with the show over the years, we did a awesome podcast episode with Al Levy, which was episode 176, called How to Hold World-Class Meetings. I believe this is going to be a bit of a different spin on meetings. I know you've got an awesome PDF here, which we'll make available in the show notes, Eric, which runs through your framework. I suppose before we get started, we should probably just dive into a little bit about you and who you are and what you do. And if you want to bring up how we were introduced, then you can do that as well.
Yeah, well, I've been working with construction companies since 2004. I worked for a world-class leadership development program for many years. And my first client was a construction company, and they're still my client today. I fell in love with working with construction companies because folks in the industry are very straightforward, they're very practical, they make a tremendous positive impact in the economies that they work in. And so I've built my whole business since 2013, working exclusively with contractors who range in revenue from about $5 million US to $1 billion US in commercial contracting.
Great. And so we were introduced through we have a mutual podcast editor, actually. Charlie introduced us, which is cool.
Yeah, Charlie's a good man.
He is a good man. And I know my experience, especially over the years with meetings, has been that they are massive time killers, and they can be seen as a huge waste of time if not done correctly. And it's probably fair to say that in 80 to 90% of the time, they're not done correctly and they are a waste of time. My experience, especially over the years, has been that we're kind of talking, I suppose, right now to a lot of business owners and people that are out there running, small businesses. And so they're very conscious of their time. My experience over the years has been people that are in jobs, or maybe there's, you've got suppliers, or you've got, people that you work with, like they justify their time by going and have meetings with people. And essentially it's just to suck up their day. And I absolutely resent that style of meeting, and I refuse to have it. So I think one good thing, I suppose, that's come out of this whole pandemic is that people now are being a little bit more proactive with meetings, and they're doing a lot of, they're saving a lot of time with traveling to meeting places. They're doing a lot through Zoom, similar to what we're doing now, I suppose. And they're kind of refining that process a lot more. And I think they're starting to really see the impacts of that. They're starting to realize how much time they were wasting previously, and how much qualification you can do and how many things you can get answered just through conversation and emails and whatever it might be, that can reduce the need for a meeting. And we do it ourselves now. Like, we've got a pretty good meeting framework, although I'm sure off the back of this conversation I'll be refining it again. But we're really proactive with our meetings in making sure that we're talking about specific things and we're not going off on tangents and ending up down this rabbit warren and in a 2-hour meeting. So yeah, I'm really keen to hear your take on this. I suppose to get started, what in your experience, I suppose, working with seemingly larger companies, what are some of the major bottlenecks there, and why do people despise meetings so much?
I think you've nailed it. And this goes for all sizes of companies, from, ones that do, $1 million or so in revenue and even less. It's really not a matter of the size of the company. The reason why they despise meetings is just because what you described is they are a waste of time. And the reason why they're a waste of time is because most people don't have a structure that they can use to identify the challenges that they're facing in the business, and then have a productive conversation about those challenges, and then go to build a plan about how they're going to overcome the specific challenges that they're facing. And if you can have a meeting structure that really gets the people involved in the meeting participating in solving the tough issues in your business, and then committing together to a plan of action, then that can really help to improve the way that you run your meetings.
Yeah, sure. As much as we may despise meetings, like a well-structured meeting,
yes,
really is a valuable thing. And there's so many different types of meetings, so maybe we can jump into that as well. I'd love to hear your take on essentially the advantages and the outcomes of a well-constructed, a well-thought-out, a well-delivered meeting, which everyone buys into, and everyone's accountable to being involved in and being at, and all this kind of stuff. Because I just feel like so many people show up to them because they feel like they have to.
Right, and so that's essential. First thing you need to do to have, and really what I want to focus on, is problem-solving meetings. This is the type of meeting we're discussing, because every business has problems. If you're alive as a human being, you have problems. Mm-hmm. And those problems are magnified in a business situation because they have such a huge impact upon the success of the organization. And so the first thing that you have to be able to do in order to have an effective meeting is identify the source of your problems. And in my experience in construction companies, there's 3 sources of problems. The first one is people. The second one is the processes that you use in your construction projects. And the third is the actual projects that you choose to build. So people, process, and project are the sources of the problems in an organization.
And like every good business coach, you seem to also put your spin on the 3 Ps. I've never met a business coach yet that doesn't have their own version of the 3 Ps. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, as much as meetings are there to solve problems, I think they're also there to prevent problems, in my experience. And we have a lot of, team meetings. We have stand-ups, twice a week, regular meetings with the team, not so much to solve a problem, but to ensure that problems don't happen. And so I think that's, like, from my experience over the years, that's kind of been the difference between having to put out fires and then stop them from being ignited.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the framework that I use has 3 main principles. And the first one is you've got to get real, then you've got to get ideas, and then you've got to get busy. And one of the biggest issues that I find in businesses is that people don't address their problems soon enough. And so I have this time pain sort of graph that I like to use. So time is going this way, pain is going that way. The more time that passes, the more the pain increases and the more money you lose.
So like marriage?
Yes, it's very much like that. Because businesses it's a relationship. Businesses are all about the quality of the relationships that we have. And if you don't address those issues in a short amount of time, then the pain increases and the money decreases. That's a massive problem.
Yeah, and I think as well, like the good thing about having regular meetings is, like you kind of alluded to there, if you can do them if you can make them regular and you can make them, have like a more of a frequency about it, you're in more of a position to reel things in that are going off track. Whereas if you have like a monthly meeting or a, quarterly meeting, or you never have meetings, by the time you've realized there's a problem, it could be so far gone that you can't bring it back.
Yeah. And the great thing about the structure that I've used, and I've taught this to my clients, for over 15 years, is that you can run the meeting that I'm describing to you and go from a blank piece of paper to unanimous commitment on how you're going to overcome a challenge in about 37 to 45 minutes.
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's very, very effective. As long as people buy into the process, it's very effective and very efficient.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, I'm keen to hear about the different types of meetings and
Sure.
perhaps the different frequencies of the meetings and like what your advice is in relation to that. Because I know again, going back to what we were saying before, like you never want to cram too much into a meeting and you want to make them as specific as you can, in my experience anyway. So I'm interested to see how you would recommend breaking those meetings down and at what frequency you want to hold them, and perhaps even who you want to hold them with.
Obviously, I think that daily check-in is very, very important. And that can be a 5 to 10 minute meeting that's just talking about what you're doing today. The weekly meeting, which is kind of where this particular meeting falls in, the weekly meeting can be one where you're checking in on project progress, what's happened in the last 7 days and what's going to happen in the next 7 days. Then you have monthly meetings where perhaps you're taking a more strategic outlook on the business, because the problem in many meetings is on a weekly basis, you surface issues that you need to dive into, but you don't have time in the weekly meeting to get into enough detail. And so you kind of brush over them and they never really get addressed. And that's why you need that monthly meeting or that quarterly meeting to take a deeper dive into the more strategic issues that you're facing in your business.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. One of the things that we do, I should say, to rectify or remedy that specific situation is with our meetings, because we run them all out of project management. We run everything out of project management. And with the meetings, every significant topic is turned into a task, which we assign to someone with a date.
Yeah, very nice.
And then nothing gets missed. And then they have to, that way they can tick it off when it's done, or if they've got problems, there's a task on it, which you can have conversations on in project management. Like I've turned into this massive project management nerd and not through desire, I might add. It's more because I was just fed up of things getting missed and fed up of, and me forgetting things, to be honest. Like 99% of the time, it's me that's dropping the ball on these things. But I just wanted a lot more like clarity around that for the team, And it's been really good. Like it just makes everything so much more transparent, like everything's there. Oh, so-and-so's working on this. This is what you've been assigned. This is what you've got coming up. Like you said before, we can, click in project manager, go, what's coming up in the next 7 days? Need to do this, this, and this, and this. And it just makes things so much easier and eliminates that human error. I mean, admittedly, I'm reading a book at the moment, which is all about improving your brain capacity and things like that. Oh, yeah. And they're saying how technology is making us go backwards in a sense with that kind of thing, because we're becoming less dependent on our brains and more dependent on tools and technology, to which I kind of agree. But then at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I just want everyone, like, we're not talking about just one brain here. We're talking about, a team of 10 or whatever it is. And like everyone's kind of got to know what's going on. So I feel like there are tools out there which really help and keep everyone on the same page with those sort of things. What's your take on that?
I think it really depends on the teams. I do think it's really important to be as efficient as you can in the way that you run your projects. And so therefore having a standard uniform set of tools that you use to communicate across your company is obviously very important. And I really like your idea there of turning the list of project items into tasks that you then assign accountability to. Because if you can do that as a leader, then you can have those direct conversations with people on a regular basis to make sure they're executing.
And eventually what happens is that what's happening now is, the team will, like, everyone gets shared that meeting space so they know what's coming up, and they'll put their own tasks in there. So this is what I got to do. And they'll assign it by the right time and the date and whatever. They stick to it. And when it makes it pretty easy from we have a big, one of our values in the business is leadership, take charge and get things done. And this is one thing that they really do quite well now. They're starting to anyway. Like, it's a learning curve, but instead of saying, coming to me or whoever their manager and saying, this is an issue, instead they try and come to us with the solution. And then, as having a solution, they can then put that into project management and execute it accordingly with the timeline, I might add.
That's essential.
Yeah, cool. So where to next?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do if you're going to have an effective problem-solving meeting is you have to be able to identify the problem, be it a people problem, a process, or a project problem. Mm-hmm. And it's essential that you state the challenge well so that everybody understands exactly what it is that you're looking to address. Mm-hmm. And so I have a question formula that I use and I teach my clients to help them to kick off the meeting. And the question formula, it goes like this: in what specific ways can we, and then you fill in the problem at the end of that phrase. Mm-hmm. So you could say this: in what specific ways can we win more jobs? Or in what specific ways can we improve safety? Mm-hmm. Something like that. And it's really important that you have the right framework, the right structure for that question. And the key word in that question is the word specific. Because once you've gathered the team who are going to look to solve the problem, you state the challenge well, and then you want specific answers from them on how they would overcome the challenge. And the reason why is because if the answer is specific, then it's much more easy to get into action and to actually build a plan that you can then execute.
Sure. Yeah. And the good thing, I suppose, about that framework is that you're getting them to buy into it instead of you telling them something. Like, you're kind of getting them to contribute. And people, in my experience, are much more willing and happy to follow a process or an idea that they've created than the one that you've given to them.
Yeah, you see, and that's why this meeting structure is so terrific, because you only want to bring people into a meeting that will actually participate in the meeting. And then when they're in the meeting, like you just said, they're going to work harder for their ideas than they are for your ideas. So the first thing you want to do is get them thinking about ideas that they can contribute to overcome the problem that you're facing.
Yeah, I think that was a big turning point for us, like just getting people to buy in, And we have a very similar philosophy or framework, if you will, with process. So we're big on encouraging the team to create process. And this morning I woke up and there's a message in our chat channel saying, hey, I've just created these 2 new SOPs, from one of my developers offshore. And it's great, like, these guys are taking it, they're being proactive, showing leadership, they're doing these things. And because they're creating the process, they're far more willing, able, and likely to follow it, So it's a really, really good way to go about things. And of course, I don't have to do it. And if I did it, I would do a half as good job, if that, as what he's done, because it's something they do every day, So
and that's right. See, right there is a key point that people who run companies need to understand, is that they often think that they have to be the ones that come up with all the brilliant ideas. And that's just not the case.
No.
You need to tap into the genius of the people that you've hired, that you work with. And it's essential that you're willing to sort of step back a little bit and allow them to shine and allow them to contribute their ideas, because you'll find not only great ideas, like you've been saying, but also that willingness then to commit and to buy into taking action on the ideas.
I'm a massive book nerd. Over the last 5-10 years, I've become a massive book nerd. Again, not through, if you had told me that 20 years ago, I probably would have said you were joking. I don't think I'd ever read a book, but I just yesterday finished The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Have you read that one? By Patrick?
Well, it's funny you say that. When I started my business, I got fired from another company that I sucked. I just did terrible. And I went back to some old clients from the leadership business I was in. And I walked in on one of my old clients and he said, Eric, we were just talking about you. Can you do a workshop for us on this book? And he was holding up The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So I began to build my business on the foundation of that book, which is pretty funny. I love that.
Right. Yeah, it's really good. And I think one of the big things, or one of the big takeaways for you guys that haven't read it, is they put a lot. I mean, it's an interesting book because it's unlike a lot of the books I read. This one's a story, like it's very story based, and so it takes you through somebody's the journey of a new CEO in a company. And one of the things they really encourage is productive conflict, and why they say conflict is good, and you shouldn't avoid conflict, because when you're having these tough conversations with people, it's when you're bringing to surface better ideas and better ways of doing things. What's your take and what's your process around that?
So that's essential. So when you're having a meeting, you have to set some ground rules. And the ground rules are these: everybody participates, there are no bad ideas, and nobody belittles anyone else for the ideas that they share. And because it's so easy to get into groupthink, where everyone thinks, well, this is the way that that person in power thinks.
Sure.
And so therefore I want to think like them because that'll, get me in favor with them. Yep. And that can really stifle a lot of great ideas. And so you as the leader have to be able to step up and say, anybody can share whatever idea they would like in order to overcome the challenge, and no one can belittle that person because of the idea. And that really generates then a sense of trust, and a lot of great ideas can come from the team because of that.
How do you get them to break those ideas down? Because I know over the years, like I've had, people say to me, oh, we should do this. And I just think, what, that's a ridiculous idea. And then 6 months later, I'm like, oh my God, why didn't we should do this? And then I realized that someone actually told me this. They didn't communicate it properly. So I didn't know how to extract what they're trying to tell me properly,
Yeah. So that's a really good question. Over the years, what I've found in facilitating meetings, and I've done this hundreds of times for construction companies, is different people have different ways of communicating. So when you're generating a list of ideas from people, you might ask them to write for 2 minutes all the ideas they can come up with on how to solve the problem. And some people can write really clearly and just their answer comes right out from what they've written down. But other people, they may write out an idea and they need time to talk that idea out when they're sharing it. So you as a facilitator, what you have to be able to do is be patient and listen very carefully to them as they're sharing the idea, and perhaps rephrase it for them, feed it back to them, and help them to clarify it. Because sometimes it takes someone 30 seconds, a minute or two to fully explain what they're talking about. But if you listen carefully and rephrase and feed it back to them, you can help them to clarify that idea so that then it's something the whole group can buy into and understand where that person is coming from.
Yeah, it's part of the genius of it, isn't it? It's like you can get a lot of great ideas out. It's almost a parable for business. There's so many great ideas out there, but most of them aren't executed on, probably largely due to the fact that there's not a clear enough understanding of, that point or that idea or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a lack of clarity. And also there's three things. There's a lack of clarity, there's biting off more than you can chew, and there's a lack of accountability. That's why execution doesn't happen. There's a real genius, I think, in getting incremental and being willing to take small steps and hold each other accountable for those small steps, because that can then build progress over time.
So with the problem meeting that you spoke about a little earlier,
yeah,
these are meetings, is that a meeting that would pop up randomly, or you'd have to call like in an ad hoc fashion, or is it something you would have scheduled on a certain time of the month or week or whatever?
I would schedule a meeting like this at least, I would say once a month, and then perhaps there might be random ones if a real serious issue comes up. Because in your weekly meetings, you want to be more project focused. What's happened the last 7 days, what's going to happen the next 7 days. But perhaps once a month, if you can say, okay, let's take on a problem that we have in our people or processes or projects, and let's address one of those issues that we know has been coming up on a weekly basis, and see how we can make incremental improvement in the next 30 to 90 days on that particular issue.
So then how would you take, I suppose, the outcomes of those meetings and apply it to like deliverables and to like the timeline or the Gantt chart or, whatever it might be?
Yeah. So the way that I do it is, once you've stated the challenge, well, like I said earlier, you then generate a list of ideas from everyone. Everyone gets 2 minutes to write down as many ideas as they can come up with to solve the problem.
Right.
And then you go around the meeting room, and let's say you have 3 to 6 people in the room, and you get 2 or 3 ideas from each person. You write it on the whiteboard or a sticky chart, or if you're on Zoom, you can do it on one of the Zoom tools. And then what you want them to do is, once you've got a list of ideas, you want them to vote on their top ideas. So take a third of the list that you have on the board. So if you have 10 ideas, a third of those is going to be 3 ideas. And you ask them to vote on their top 3 of the 10 ideas. And if you go through that process, what you'll find is that 1 or 2 ideas come to the surface as the best ideas for overcoming the challenge that you're facing.
Mm.
Okay, now, And this is where it gets really important, because what happens is you generate a list of ideas. Everyone feels good about generating the ideas, but then no action plan is made. And so nothing gets done. And then meetings are just a waste of time. So what you do then is you identify your most valuable idea, and you then translate that into the top of your one-page action plan. And at the top of your action plan is what I call the rally cry.
Okay.
All right. So I'm a bit of a history nut. In 1944, when the Allies invaded the northern France to kick out the Germans from France, the British and the Americans were landing on the beach, and their rally cry was "Beat Germany." So everyone from the private dying on the beaches to the general sitting back, in London directing the forces, everybody understood the rally cry, "Beat Germany." And so if you're going to be able to be effective at solving the problems, you have to have a clear rally cry that everyone understands.
Sorry to all of our German listeners, or both of them.
I know. Do we have many German listeners?
Both of our German listeners.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I've never thought of that before. I've used this analogy many times, and I've never thought of apologizing to the German listeners. I appreciate that, Matt.
That's why they don't like you.
I don't have many listeners in Germany.
I know. Yeah, no wonder.
That's beautiful. And once you've got the rally cry, then you have to have areas of fierce focus. And what's interesting to me is that you'll probably have identified 3 or 4 things in the list of ideas that will actually help you to achieve that best idea, that rally cry. And so you want to list out those areas of fierce focus that will enable you to achieve the rally cry. So for instance, back in 1944, you've got to secure the beachhead. That's the first area of fierce focus. Then you've got to maybe get out into the countryside. Then you got to take Paris. Then you got to get to Berlin. All those areas of fierce focus. So you identify those and you assign one person to each area of fierce focus that will help you to achieve the rally cry. And then once you've got those areas of fierce focus, you then have a critical number that you tie to each area of fierce focus. And that number can be a metric, or it can be a date. Whatever the case is, you want something that you can use to measure how well you're executing the fierce focus so that you can then achieve the rally cry. Gotcha. So on a one-page plan, you should have the rally cry, areas of fierce focus, and then critical numbers that tell you whether or not you're driving the fierce focus and achieving the rally cry.
So it was rally cry. What was the other one?
Rally cry at the top, fierce focus in the middle, and critical numbers at the bottom. And there's a critical number tied to each area of fierce focus, which then helps to achieve the rally cry. And
so in terms of people that are present in the meetings, so yes. Are you having this one meeting with your entire organization? Is your manager having it with their little pods? Like, how does it play out?
You can have it. Let's say you've got guys in the field and it's a field issue and you just want guys from the field dealing with the field issue. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. But you may have a bigger issue that you want to have someone who's bidding the work as well as someone who's building the work. So you want to think about the problem that you're facing and bring in people appropriate to that particular problem. You don't need to bring in the whole company for this. And this particular framework works best with anywhere from, I would say, 5 to 12 people at the most.
Right. What are all the meetings that you would recommend holding, and who do you hold them with?
Okay, so you've got your stand-up meetings every day. So if I want to talk to my, pardon?
Is that team-wide, or is that, who's that with?
That's with my direct reports. I want to talk to my direct reports every day. I want to get, either on the phone or face-to-face. I want to talk to my direct reports every day. Yeah. And if you have more than 7 or 8 direct reports, you're doing something wrong. You need to have less direct reports. So I want to have a stand-up meeting with my direct reports every day.
So that might be,
and then if
the head of a department or...
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then I want to have the project meetings every week where we're talking about project progress. How well are we doing in terms of what we've estimated with our schedule and what our actual is with our schedule? What's the customer relationships like? What are some of the issues that we're facing?
And who's coming to that meeting?
Whoever's involved in that particular project.
Okay. And so would that include, obviously, staff on site? Would it include contractors? Would it include partners, suppliers?
Not necessarily. I would say that if let's say you're a subcontractor and you're running a project meeting every week, you're going to be meeting with the supervisors from the field. So let's say your foreman, your superintendent, that's what we have here in the States, and your project manager. Those three people should be meeting together every week, I would say. And perhaps you bring in an executive into that meeting to talk about project progress. So again, you've got your executive, your foreman, your superintendent, your project manager in that meeting.
So that's still quite a high level meeting. That's sort of, that one there's to measure project progress. Then off the back of that, you go and do a one-on-one or a team meeting, or how would that roll out?
I would do one-on-one meetings with your direct reports at least once a month. That's going to be a in-person, if possible, or over Zoom, 30 to 60-minute meeting. And in that meeting, and because your direct reports may be working on more than one project, for instance, they may have more than one responsibility. Some people may be getting work, estimating it, but they may also be running work as well. So they may be split between more than one responsibility. And you want to check in with them every month, belly to belly, and have that 30 to 60-minute conversation about how they're doing in general with their responsibilities.
Okay. But then off the back of the weekly project meeting where you've got, your superintendent, your foreman, supervisors, whatever.
Yes.
What meeting happens off the back of that, which involves the guys out there, doing the rough-ins or laying the drainage or whatever?
That's the daily check-in. We call those tailgate meetings in the U.S. because, the tailgate bed, folds down, and you're going to meet with those guys every morning. You should be on site. The field supervisor should be on site, meeting with their guys, lining them out every morning. That's 15, 20 minutes, having a safety check-in, maybe doing a little bit of stretching, whatever you need to do to get your guys going. And then you're communicating with them regularly on a daily basis. And
so that raises a good point. I know when I was a plumber and I was running projects like construction projects, we were obligated to run site safety meetings and, WHS meetings and all this kind of stuff. Where does that slot in? We used to call them toolbox talks.
It sounds like the same thing as tailgate meetings.
Right.
Those to me are in the morning. You're running those first thing in the morning.
Okay.
You're looking every guy in the eye. You want to see how they're doing. Have they had a fight with the wife the night before? Did they drink too much the night before and they're maybe not in great shape? You want to make sure that you're looking at folks in the eye, see who's going to be, bringing their A game, perhaps someone who's struggling. Make sure that they understand the obstacles that are in the way, which other contractors you're going to have to be negotiating with or moving around that day, and just get everyone kicked off the right way.
And the person that's running those tailgate meetings is going to be the foreman or the superintendent or whatever it is, right? So you don't have to actually do it. You're not doing it yourselves. No.
You don't want to do that. No. But I would say this. Let me just say this. The problem with many contractors is that, and it's a good problem, they get out of the field and they have other people working, but there is an incredible amount of power to showing up on the job site as the owner of the company.
Sure.
And just spending a few minutes talking to the guys, making sure they understand that you really appreciate the work that they're doing. There's an incredible power in that.
Sure. I suppose I'm getting at though, you've got your stand-up meeting where you're dealing with the direct reports, so head of department or whatever it might be, supervisors. Yes. You've got your project meeting, which is like a weekly meeting, which you're dealing with more, say, the principal contractor or your, your site supervisors again to make sure the project's running correctly. And then you've got your tailgate meetings, which is more of a daily, okay, well, this is what we need to achieve today, guys. We need to make sure that all this drainage is in because they're going to come through the landscaping tomorrow, whatever it is, right? Yep. So, okay. And so is that pretty much the three meetings, or is there?
Well, to me, there's going to be more. So that's where you're going to have that monthly meeting that I was describing, perhaps where you're problem solving.
Yep.
And you're going to bring in your key superintendents, maybe a key foreman. Yep. You're going to bring in your project managers and your executives, and you're going to have a discussion about some of the issues that you're facing in the business. And then meetings that I'll have with my clients on a regular basis. I'm going to have one here in a couple of weeks with one of my clients and they're a tiling company and a stucco company. They got two companies, and we'll do a business development planning meeting for both of those companies for 2021, where we talk about the targets for business development and how we're going to go after those and put together a business development plan for that particular organization.
And that meeting will kind of dictate the others to a degree, won't it? Because off the back of your annual planning meeting, that's when you can kind of break things down into quarterly, monthly, weekly, even daily.
Absolutely. And I strongly encourage people to have those meetings with a format. I really believe there's a great advantage to business owners bringing in an outside facilitator. And I understand that's self-serving because that's what I do. But the reason why is so that you can sit back and have someone else with an outside perspective shape the conversation and help you to see where your people are coming from. And you can kind of take a break from having to be on and running everything. And you can listen and reflect and really take time to see where some of the issues are in your organization.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think sometimes as well that it's better received.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a saying, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country. Every parent knows that, right? I mean, you can be saying something to your kids and your kids are like, yeah, whatever, dad. And then, the coach or the teacher says something to them, exactly the same thing. And they're like, whoa, that's a great idea. I should do that. It's the same thing in business.
Nice. All right, cool. So then where do we go from there?
Well, I think that the key is once you have one of these problem-solving meetings that I've been describing, you've got to have regular follow-up on those things. So you shouldn't just say, here's the plan, you're going to execute, and then just leave it at that. But you should follow up on at least a weekly basis on those areas of fierce focus to make sure that rally cry is being achieved. Because one of the ways that you really undermine your credibility as a leader is you call a meeting, you come up with great ideas about how to overcome the challenges you have. Everyone agrees on what you're going to do, but then you never follow up. And therefore, it never gets done. And so people tend to get a little cynical and jaded as a result of that. And the company doesn't perform at the highest possible level.
So, and this is one of the reasons why we've implemented this framework into our project management, because that was happening.
Yeah.
And there was things were getting said and not done,
Yes.
And so now we were big on that. But I appreciate perhaps that's not, well, I don't know if it's not for everyone, to be honest. I think it probably is for everyone. It's something different. So it's a lot of people don't like change, to which I say suck it up and get it done, because if it helps you do something better, then kudos to it. But I think that's one of the big objections we get is that, I've never done this, or I'm used to doing it this way. That whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mindset, which is ridiculous because there's so many ways to improve things beyond what you know. Hence why we have podcasts, I suppose.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's important that if you want to make progress in your business, that you have people in your business who have that same mindset. And if you allow people to hang around who are not a cultural fit for your business, you're going to undermine everything that you want to do. So make sure that you have people in the organization who are on the same page with you in terms of innovation and process improvement and moving the business forward.
I think as well, like one of the big things would be just making it part of a culture that these meetings exist and, that they have to be there. Because I think if they're scheduled, they're regular, they know they're coming, it's in their calendar, they're notified, it makes it a lot more productive, whereas if you just call an ad hoc meeting, then it's kind of everyone's sort of on the back foot and no one really knows what's coming. That's certainly been my experience. In my team, they look in their calendar, they know there's a meeting on Friday, they know there's a meeting on Monday. Yep. Yeah, they're all there, they're all prepared, they know what's going on, And
absolutely.
We've made that part of the culture.
Yep. If you can make sure that the meetings are structured in such a way that they get everyone involved, that they respect everybody's time, and that they actually make progress, then people will look forward to the meetings instead of thinking it's a complete waste of time. But you have to work hard in order for that to happen. And That's why it's important that you have specific structures that you can use in order to run those effective meetings.
Yeah, exactly right. Cool. Mate, this has been great. Is there anything we need to cover off on before we wrap it up?
The process I've described to you, if you want to grab the free ebook that describes it, you just go to ericanderton.com/K as in kangaroo, A as in apple, M as in Mary. That stands for kick-ass meetings. And that's my fancy way or my powerful title for my ebook. But the process that I describe is incredibly practical. I've used it for well over 15 years with my construction clients, and it works to help you to identify your problems, get ideas to solve the problems, and then get into action to actually make progress in your business.
Is that, Eric, the PDF that you sent me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yep. Well, that'll be available through a form in the show notes, folks. So
perfect.
I'll make sure that's there. Great. Well, this has been awesome. So again, where's the best place to get hold of you, Eric?
ericanderton.com.
That's ANDERTON.com.
TON, the English spelling. Yep.
And Eric.
And you can also, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So if you're on LinkedIn, just look me up, Eric Anderton. My company name is Construction Genius, and that's the name of my podcast as well. So you can always check out Construction Genius as well. Oh,
that's a good idea, actually. Tell us a little bit about the podcast.
Well, Construction Genius, I'm not the construction genius. Where I get the title from is Thomas Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So contractors put in the 99% perspiration The podcast is designed to give you that 1% inspiration to help you to achieve your goals. And so I interview people from construction backgrounds. I do solo shows on leadership and sales and strategy. And it's a terrific show. So I'd encourage you guys to check it out.
Totally.
In addition to Matt's show.
Well, I'll put some links to all that stuff in the show notes, guys. So if you want to get hold of any of that stuff, you can head across to the website and siteshed.com, and I'll put links to all those resources and podcasts and that kind of stuff there.
It's beautiful. I really appreciate that, Matt.
Awesome. Well, mate, thanks for your time. It's been great. I look forward to collaborating further. I'm sure there's a million things we can talk about. This is but one.
That'd be great. And I'm looking forward to having you on my show as well.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. All right, listeners. Well, that was interesting to you and you enjoyed that. I'd love to hear your comments in the Facebook community. So head across to the SiteShed private group there where there's 6,000 plus global trade business owners and you can be part of the conversation. Let us know what's working in your meetings. Let us know what's not working in your meetings. Let us know why you hate meetings. Most importantly, let us know what you're going to do to make them better looking forward. Eric, thank you very much for your time once again. Look forward to collaborating in the future. And that's a wrap.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.